My mother didn't whisper it. She said it loud enough for the entire room to hear. I wish you were never born. Conversation snapped shut. Glasses froze mid-air. Even the music seemed to choke. And I just stood there, feeling every pair of eyes swing toward me, waiting to see if I would crumble the way they always assumed I would. But something else rose instead, something that had been silent for years. I lifted my head, ready to answer her in a way no one expected. Because the moment she tried to erase me was the moment I learned a truth she never wanted me to know. I grew up in a two-story house on a quiet street in Rochester. The kind of place people describe as stable, peaceful, predictable. And maybe it was, for everyone except me. From the earliest years, there was a gravitational force in our home, an unspoken orbit everything revolved around, and it wasn't me, it was Ashley, the golden child. The bright one. The girl whose name could lift my mother's mood faster than sunlight hitting a window. If Ashley sneezed, Mom fetched tissues like she was tending to national treasure. If she brought home an award, any award, even the participation kind, Dad announced it across the dinner table like breaking news. But when I achieved something, when I actually earned something, polite nod, soft pat, conversation redirected. I still remember the year I won first place in the regional math competition. I was 14, carrying that certificate like it was made of glass. I walked into the living room, heart pounding, hoping maybe this time. Mom didn't even look up from the laundry basket. That's nice, she murmured, folding a towel. Then her face brightened. Ashley's volunteering at the hospital today. Isn't that wonderful? She's making real impact. Real impact. Those two words built the cage she kept me in. According to her, saving lives mattered. Caring for people mattered. Having a purpose mattered. And somehow in her world, nothing I ever did counted. Still, I kept going, early morning shifts at the cafe before school. Running to class, then work, then home, then studying until my eyes burned. In college, I juggled 3 jobs, tutoring, cleaning offices, stocking shelves, while paying bills my parents never acknowledged I covered. They only asked when the money was due. Some nights, wiping tables at the cafe, I'd imagine what it might feel like to be seen, not praised, not celebrated, just seen. But you learn to survive inside silence. You learn to build walls inside of yourself where no one can reach. Years later, when I got into Stanford's MBA program, my advisor cried harder than my mother did. Mom just nodded, then said, Ashley's rotations in the ER start next month. She's doing such meaningful work. Still, some small part of me believed things would change. I told myself that success at that level had to tilt the scales at least a little. So I chose Seattle, a clean start, a city built on ambition. Imagining maybe coming home with a degree and an offer would make them proud. I didn't know the dinner at Del Monaco would prove how wrong I was. That week after graduation blurred by congratulations from people who'd watched me fight for every inch. Professors, classmates, managers, people who knew the weight I carried. For once, I allowed myself to hope my parents would show a flicker of pride. I booked a private room at Del Monaco's, a place I'd only ever walked past. Crisp linens, soft golden light, stemware that sparkled like it had never known fingerprints. I paid for everything, the food, wine, deposit, not because I wanted extravagance, but because I was still trying to build a bridge. My colleagues arrived first, warm, chatty, the kind of people who look at you like you matter. My manager clasped my hand and whispered, "Tonight's yours." Then my parents walked in. Mother's heels clicked like she owned the place. Father's expression carried that familiar cocktail of indifference and judgment. They brought nothing, not a flower, not a card, not even the decency of pride. Introductions began. Compliments flowed my way. "You must be incredibly proud of Claire," one professor said. "A Stanford MBA isn't something you stumble into." My mother's smile thinly stretched. "We're proud of both our daughters. But Ashley, she's saving lives. That's real impact." The room shifted. Another colleague tried to steer the attention back to me. "Claire carried our entire intern team last quarter." My father chuckled. Actually chuckled. "Well, she's clever. But what Ashley does, that's meaningful." Something cracked inside me. My manager stood to toast me, sincere, warm, the kind of praise I had never been given at home. For a moment, the applause made me feel seen. Then I turned to my parents. My father leaned back, murmured the words that would splinter something deep inside me. Compared to a doctor, it doesn't measure up. And then my mother delivered the sentence that ended everything I knew. Sometimes I wonder why Claire takes things so seriously. Ashley never causes this kind of drama. I felt the room tilt. And then, I wish you were never born. It fell from her lips like ordering coffee. A fork clattered. Someone gasped. My throat tightened until it hurt. But I didn't cry. I pushed my chair back. The sound carved through the silence. Excuse me? I didn't look at them. I walked out. The Seattle night swallowed me, cold, damp, rain blurring the lights. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands were shaking. 11 missed calls from my parents. One text. You embarrassed us. Hope you're proud of yourself. Proud. I opened my banking app. Saw the automatic transfers, utilities, Ashley's tuition, the family mortgage. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Each tap felt like reclaiming oxygen. The next morning, Michael showed up with takeout, sat beside me on the floor. I whispered, I'm done. He didn't argue. About time you saved yourself. 3 weeks of silence followed. Not an apology. Not a flicker of concern. And strangely, I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of them. Then work surged forward. Recognition followed. A magazine featured me. Messages poured in from strangers who knew what it meant to grow up invisible. Life began to shift. But silence doesn't last forever. One Tuesday night, tired from a 12-hour day, I saw 2 silhouettes behind my apartment door. My mother's voice sliced through the frosted glass. Claire. Open the door. We know you're there? And everything inside me stilled. When I opened the door, they swept inside without waiting for an invitation. The same way they had swept into every part of my life, entitled, assuming uninvited. My father took the couch like he owned the space. My mother paced once, her gaze sharp, tight. We need to talk, she said. I didn't sit. About Ashley, I asked. My mother's chin lifted. Of course about Ashley? Of course. My father exhaled through his nose, a sound that carried years of expectation and pressure. Her internship ended unexpectedly. There were cuts. Her tuition is overdue, and unless the balance is paid, she'll be asked to take a leave from the program. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. The silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight. And, I said, my mother snapped, we need your help. The audacity was almost breathtaking. They hadn't come to apologize. They hadn't come to acknowledge the wreckage they left in their wake. They came because they wanted something. They came because their golden child needed saving, again. When I didn't respond, her tone sharpened, brittle and accusing. Claire, don't be petty. Ashley is your sister. I laughed, short, hollow, a sound I didn't recognize as mine. I paid her tuition for years. I covered your bills. Your mortgage. I worked myself raw to keep this family from falling apart. And you told me you wished I was never born. My father straightened, his jaw tightening. We were angry. You made a scene. No, I said, stepping closer. You made the scene. I just walked out of it. My mother folded her arms, eyebrows lifting as if I was overreacting to a mild inconvenience. You're our daughter. Family is family. I breathed in slowly. You don't get to play that card now. Her voice rose. You're being unreasonable. You owe? I owe nothing. The words came out calm, steady, almost serene. They seemed to hit harder than if I had screamed. My father's face reddened. We raised you. No, I said, my voice quiet but unshakable. You didn't raise me, you drained me. For the first time, they both went still. A silence settled between us, not the suffocating kind I grew up with, but a new one. A clean one. A silence made of truth. I walked to the door, not to leave, but to open it. The hallway light spilled in. If you came to apologize, I said softly, I would listen. They didn't speak, not a word. But if you came to ask for more, I met their eyes. That conversation ended the night you disowned me. My mother scoffed, but there was a tremor beneath the sound. You're making a mistake? Maybe, I said, but it's mine to make. You'll regret this, she said sharply. Someday you'll realize you need your family. I breathed out, slow, full. Consider me as if I never existed. Live your lives as though there was never a daughter named Claire. They froze. My father's mouth parted, my mother's face blanched, her expression breaking for the first time. I nodded toward the open door. It's time for you to leave. My mother hesitated, eyes darting like she was hunting for leverage she no longer had. But there was nothing left to take. She turned sharply. My father followed slower, like a man walking away from the ruins of a fire he didn't expect to burn this far. When the door clicked shut, the apartment didn't feel empty. It felt mine. In the days that followed, I braced for guilt. For the old reflexes, the urge to call, to fix, to smooth things over. But they never came. Instead, there was stillness. Clean, steady stillness. Work surged. The project closed with results none of us had predicted. When the contract renewed, my manager handed me a folder with a smile that reached his eyes. You're ready. Inside was the leadership track I had fought for without realizing I had been fighting for it all my life. This time, I didn't doubt I deserved it. The article about our work went viral. More than I expected. My inbox filled with messages from people who had grown up in the shadow of a favored sibling. People who whispered thank you for saying the words they'd carried inside their bones for years. Their stories felt like map points to places I once lived in. One night, after another long day, I stepped onto my balcony. The Seattle skyline glimmered behind mist and low clouds, the air cool against my skin. For a long while I stood there, listening to the quiet hum of the city. I thought of the girl I used to be, the one who lived on the crumbs of her family's attention, the one who believed love had to be earned through sacrifice. She was gone now. In her place was someone steadier. Someone who had stopped waiting for people who never came, and life was beginning to unfold in ways I didn't expect. But the world doesn't reset all at once. Healing doesn't arrive in a single moment. Sometimes it arrives quietly. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a stranger who changes everything. The stranger arrived on a Thursday morning, just as the sky was shifting from violet to gray. I was standing in line at the cafe downstairs, the smell of espresso thick in the air, when someone tapped my shoulder. Excuse me, are you Claire Shelby? I turned. A woman in her early 40s stood there, hair tucked behind one ear, holding a copy of the business magazine that had featured my project. My face was on the cover, something I still wasn't used to. Yes, I said cautiously. She smiled, but it wasn't the starstruck kind, it was something gentler. Sadder, I read your story. Her voice softened. And I needed to tell you thank you. My daughter's 16. Her father treats her the way your parents treated you. I've been trying to help her find her voice. When she read your interview, she said, maybe I'm not the problem. It changed something in her. My chest tightened. I didn't know what to say. The woman handed me a small folded note. She wanted you to have this. On the front, in shaky handwriting, it read for Claire. Inside, thank you for proving that walking away doesn't make you unlovable. My throat tightened. Something hot pricked behind my eyes. Not pain, recognition. When I looked up, the woman had already stepped back. I won't take more of your time, she said. Just keep going. And then she was gone. I stood there, the note trembling slightly between my fingers, realizing something I had never allowed myself to believe. My story had stopped being about my parents a long time ago. It had become a bridge for people I would never meet. A voice for those who still lived in the shadows I escaped. Life didn't magically soften after that. But it steadied, slowly, quietly. Michael became a constant, steady check-ins, shared takeout nights, someone who didn't flinch at my silence or mistakes. Work expanded into opportunities I never thought I'd reach. My apartment grew warmer, lighter, filled with music and the first plants I didn't manage to kill. Months slipped by. I didn't hear from my parents again. Not a call, not a message, not a question about how I was doing. And for once the absence didn't ache. One night I stood on my balcony again, Seattle glowing below. The air was cool, the kind that made you breathe deeper. This time, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I found. A life that was mine. A voice that was mine, a future I was no longer afraid to step into. Maybe I was never the daughter they wanted, but I became the woman I needed. And if you've ever carried the weight of a family that couldn't see you, you are not broken. You are not invisible. You are not alone. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And one day, when the moment is right, you will step into the version of yourself you were always meant to be. Not because someone finally chooses you, but because you finally choose yourself.